Hey everyone! Welcome to the Bold and Beautiful 24. I'm Alessio, and I'm so excited to have you here. If you love Bold and Beautiful, then you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Alright, let's dive right in. Chelsea feels envious of Sally after Claire turns down Kyle's Paris vacation. Chelsea Lawson becomes envious of Sally Spectra, while Claire Newman will turn down Kyle Abbott's Paris vacation. Kyle will attempt to persuade Claire to visit Paris at Crimson Lights. Kyle will outline all the locations they can visit after framing it as a chance to rekindle their relationship and get rid of all the drama surrounding Audra Charles. Claire may appear captivated at first, but she will also worry that Kyle is really trying to escape their issues. Claire will worry that Kyle believes she will forget her lack of trust and move on if he holds the proper dazzling object in front of her. Since Kyle keeps making mistakes and he only wants to make things right and put their relationship back on track, he will apologize. Claire won't believe that Holden Novak has recently overreached himself, even if he will finally appear with an apology of his own. Holden will also talk about his impending trip to Los Angeles to complete the transfer of Arabesque's operations to Genoa City and wind up matters there. Holden will maintain that he was sacked and then rehired, but Kyle will assume that he never quit working for Kane Ashby. Kyle will criticize Holden for attempting to appear like the nice person in Claire's eyes when she leaves to answer a phone call. Chelsea and Adam Newman will discuss the botched launch of Abbott Communications and the extent of Sally's authority as CEO, with Billy Abbott micromanaging, at Society. Sally will make hints at Billy's house about trying to dissuade him from his most recent plan, but Billy will already have made up his mind. Billy will try to persuade Sally that he can obtain Abbott Communications financing and the position of Chancellor by just threatening to employ the AI software. Sally would contend that threatening Victor Newman is as risky, and that Kane will become irate if Billy deviates from his wishes. Sally will be concerned about all the ways this could go wrong, while Billy will pretend that everything will work itself out. Sally will be upset with Billy for altering their plans when she left Marchetti to work with him at Abbott Communications. Sally will explain that she is not and does not want to be a part of that picture because Billy is being self-centered and only cares about his obsessions with vengeance. Audra will text Sally after she leaves Billy, asking, "What the hell is going on now that the launch isn't taking place?" Sally will mention that she is no longer with Abbott Communications when she next encounters Adam and Chelsea. Sally will pretend that things weren't working out, but Adam will get furious because he will think Billy threw her out the same way he threw out Phyllis Summers. He'll call Johnny Abbott and Katie Abbott back to Billy to reschedule their meeting so he may discuss the topic he intended to discuss. Billy will imply Sally's move-in since he will give the children a signal that what he intended to talk about won't actually happen. Billy will question whether Sally is abandoning the company or their relationship when she answers his phone later. Billy will be even more disturbed by the news because Sally won't know the answer until Tuesday's YNR episode. Billy will throw his phone down in exasperation whenever Kane calls. Adam will still be furious over Billy's treatment of Sally at Newman Media and will rave about her abilities. Chelsea will appear envious as she dismisses Adam's compliments and maintains that she understands he is a fan. Chelsea won't be as quick to place the blame on Billy because she will point out that they don't know exactly what happened. Adam will be irritated since he will not comprehend Chelsea's constant tendency to overlook Billy's actions. Chelsea Lawson could hardly hide the flicker of envy that coursed through her every time Sally Spectra's name came up, and lately it seemed like Sally was on everyone's lips. From Adam Newman's quiet praises to Billy Abbott's constant micromanaging at Abbott Communications, Sally's presence had grown larger than life in Genoa City, almost suffocating in the way it seemed to shadow Chelsea's every move. And though Chelsea tried to maintain her usual composure with practiced grace, she couldn't help the way her heart tightened when Adam described Sally's brilliance with a gleam of admiration that felt too sincere, too heartfelt for Chelsea's liking, planting the bitter seed of comparison in her mind, while at the same time, across town at Crimson Lights, Kyle Abbott was engaged in his own desperate attempt to salvage what remained of his strained relationship with Claire Newman, laying out the dream of Paris as though the Eiffel Tower itself could erase the fractures of mistrust. Between them, painting the city in glowing colors, a chance to leave behind the dark stain of Audra Charles's meddling and rekindle the spark that had once lit their world on fire, and for a fleeting moment, Claire appeared almost taken by the allure of it all, the thought of walking through Parisian streets with Kyle, wrapped in romance and forgetting the chaos of Genoa City. Yet the reality quickly pressed against her heart as she wondered if Kyle's grand gesture was nothing more than a distraction, a shiny ornament dangled in front of her in hopes she'd forget the betrayals and lies that still lingered between them, and as Kyle offered his apology, pleading that he was only a man who kept making mistakes but who desperately wanted to make things right, Claire's hesitation grew heavier, knowing that forgiveness couldn't be bought with plane tickets and candlelit promises. And when Holden Novak crossed her path with his own apology, insisting that his recent overreach had been an error of passion, not malice, Claire's confusion deepened, especially as Holden revealed his upcoming trip to Los Angeles to finalize the transfer of Arabesque's operations to Genoa City, a move that placed him squarely in Kyle's suspicious line of sight, with Kyle convinced that Holden had never truly stepped away from Kane Ashby's side despite claims of being fired and then rehired, and their clash erupted the moment Claire stepped aside to answer a phone call, with Kyle accusing Holden of playing the hero in Claire's eyes while Holden countered with icy confidence, leaving Claire caught between two men pulling her in opposite directions. And while her turmoil brewed, the world outside her circle continued to unravel, with Chelsea and Adam seated at Society, dissecting the botched launch of Abbott Communications. Adam stewing in frustration over Billy's poor leadership while Chelsea quietly seethed over the subtle reverence Adam still held for Sally as CEO, and in Billy's orbit, Sally herself was caught in another storm, pleading with Billy at the Abbott house to reconsider his reckless scheme to secure funding and Chancellor's position through veiled threats and the dangerous leverage of AI software. But Billy was deaf to reason, blinded by his obsession with besting Victor Newman and asserting his power, and Sally, exhausted by his tunnel vision and deeply troubled by the risk of angering Kane Ashby should Billy deviate from the plan, finally reached her breaking point, reminding Billy that she had left Marchetti to join him at Abbott Communications, to build something real, not to become a pawn in his vendetta, and though her voice trembled with hurt, Billy dismissed her warnings with the arrogance of a man convinced everything would work out, leaving Sally shaken by the realization that she no longer recognized the man she had tethered her future to. So when Audra Charles's biting text lit up her phone demanding answers about the failed launch, Sally responded with a cold admission that she was no longer with Abbott Communications, a statement that sent ripples through every circle of influence in Genoa City, and the fallout reached Adam and Chelsea soon after, when Sally, feigning calm, explained that things just hadn't worked out, though Adam immediately saw through the facade, his fury igniting at the thought that Billy had discarded Sally the same way he had tossed Phyllis Summers aside, leading Adam to reschedule his meeting with Johnny and Katie to confront Billy, his rage boiling over as he accused Billy of wrecking yet another life, while Billy, cornered, tried to twist the situation by suggesting Sally move in with him, signaling to his children that nothing was falling apart even as his entire world crumbled, and when Sally picked up his call later, her uncertain words, that she didn't know whether she was leaving the company or their relationship, cut Billy deeper than any rival ever could, sending him into a spiral of despair so fierce that he hurled his phone across the room when Kane's name flashed on the screen, unwilling to face yet another complication, while in the background, Adam's anger simmered hotter, his praise for Sally's talent flowing like lava in Chelsea's ears, every compliment twisting into a reminder of her own insecurities. And though Chelsea tried to mask it with dismissive words, insisting that she already knew, Adam admired Sally. The truth was that her envy was growing sharper, harder to ignore, gnawing at the fragile stability she had built, and when she attempted to soften the blow by noting that they didn't know all the details of what had gone down between Sally and Billy, Adam only grew more irritated, unable to comprehend Chelsea's relentless defense of Billy, a man whose actions had brought nothing but chaos, betrayal, and pain. And as Chelsea sat there, torn between her pride and her jealousy, watching Adam's eyes blaze with loyalty to Sally in a way they hadn't for her in years, she realized with a bitter pang that her envy wasn't just about Sally's career or her influence. It was about the undeniable place Sally now held in Adam's heart, a place Chelsea feared she might never reclaim, while somewhere across town, Claire, still standing in the aftermath of Kyle's desperate proposal and Holden's conflicting loyalty, began to wonder if her refusal of Paris was not only about mistrust, but about destiny pulling her in a direction she had yet to fully understand. The fallout from Sally's sudden departure from Abbott Communications only intensified in the hours and days that followed, as Chelsea Lawson continued to wrestle with the gnawing bitterness of envy that refused to let her breathe, and though she tried to distract herself with conversations about Connor's future or projects of her own, her thoughts inevitably drifted back to Adam and the way his voice softened when he spoke about Sally, almost reverently, as though Sally were a beacon of light in the shadows of his chaotic life, and Chelsea despised the way her heart twisted every time she heard it, because deep down she knew Adam still admired Sally in a way he didn't admire her anymore, and that realization was unbearable. At Society, Chelsea tried to keep her cool when Adam began ranting again about Billy's reckless treatment of Sally, praising Sally's ingenuity and perseverance, but Chelsea's eyes betrayed the storm inside her, and while she insisted she understood Adam's point, she couldn't help slipping in subtle barbs, questioning why Sally always seemed to inspire such loyalty while she was left feeling like an afterthought. The tension between them simmered as Chelsea tried to convince herself that she was above petty jealousy, yet every fiber of her being screamed otherwise, and it was only a matter of time before her envy would spill over in ways she couldn't control. Meanwhile, Sally Spectra found herself at a crossroads, struggling to reconcile the dreams she had once shared with Billy Abbott and the harsh reality that he had become consumed by vengeance and ambition. After leaving Abbott Communications, Sally wandered through Genoa City with a heavy heart, replaying Billy's words and wondering if she had been naive to believe he could ever put aside his obsession with Victor Newman long enough to build something lasting. She thought about Marchetti, about the life she had left behind to follow Billy's promises, and the painful irony of it all stung her deeply. She wanted stability, purpose, and a partner who saw her as more than a pawn in their war games, but Billy's actions had proven once again that his obsessions always came first. When Audra Charles confronted Sally about the imploding launch, demanding answers with biting sarcasm, Sally could only shake her head and reveal that she was no longer part of Abbott Communications, a revelation that stunned Audra, who immediately recognized the opportunity to slide into the chaos and exploit it for her own gain. Audra left with a smirk, already plotting how she could maneuver herself back into the center of Abbott power, while Sally was left reeling, trying to decide whether her future lay in rebuilding her career independently or risking yet another entanglement with the unpredictable Abbotts and Newmans. Elsewhere, Billy Abbott spiraled further, his anger growing as he tried to mask his desperation. He attempted to convince himself that Sally would return once she cooled off, but deep down he feared this time was different. He tried distracting himself with his children, Johnny and Katie, but even they could sense the tension, watching their father pace the living room, muttering under his breath about Kane Ashby, Victor, and the future of Abbott Communications. The phone rang again and again, Kane's name flashing on the screen, but Billy refused to answer, each call a reminder that he had lost control of the very scheme he believed would cement his legacy. By the time Sally picked up his call later, her hesitant words, uncertain about their relationship and the company, felt like knives, and Billy, once so confident, now felt his world slipping through his fingers. His frustration reached a breaking point, and in a fit of rage he hurled his phone across the room, shattering it against the wall, symbolizing the fragile state of his career, his romance, and perhaps even his sanity. At Crimson Lights, Kyle Abbott was still reeling from Claire Newman's refusal to accompany him to Paris. He had thought the idea was perfect, a grand gesture to wipe away their problems, to restore the magic between them, but Claire's hesitation cut him deeply, forcing him to confront the uncomfortable truth that no vacation could erase her mistrust. He insisted that he only wanted to make things right, but Claire's guarded expression told him she wasn't convinced, and when Holden Novak arrived with his own apology, Kyle's insecurities only intensified. Watching Holden charm Claire with his sincerity, Kyle's jealousy flared, leading to a heated confrontation once Claire stepped aside to answer a phone call. Kyle accused Holden of manipulating the situation to appear like the noble savior, while Holden coolly reminded Kyle that trust was something earned, not bought with trips to Paris or empty promises. Their words clashed like swords, and though no one else in the coffeehouse seemed to notice, the tension between them was palpable, a silent war for Claire's heart playing out in every glare, every barbed remark. Claire, for her part, felt caught in a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She wanted to believe in Kyle, to trust that his apologies were genuine, but his pattern of mistakes haunted her, and she couldn't shake the fear that Paris was simply a distraction. Holden's presence complicated things further. His apology felt earnest, and his plans to finalize Arabesque's transition to Genoa City suggested stability, something Claire longed for. Yet she also knew Holden carried his own secrets, his ties to Kane Ashby and the mystery surrounding his firing and rehiring, leaving her uncertain of his true loyalties. As she stood between Kyle and Holden, Claire realized that no matter what choice she made, her life was on the brink of change, and that terrified her. Back at Society, Chelsea continued to unravel as Adam's admiration for Sally spilled out in every conversation. When Adam praised Sally's resilience and brilliance, Chelsea's envy burned so hot it almost escaped her lips in the form of cruel remarks, but she bit them back, masking her jealousy with a tight smile. She insisted she understood Adam's perspective, that she knew he was simply a fan of Sally's talents, but her words were hollow, brittle, and Adam sensed it. He grew irritated with Chelsea's refusal to condemn Billy outright, baffled by her willingness to excuse his rival's behavior, and though he didn't say it aloud, he couldn't understand why Chelsea seemed more focused on minimizing Billy's faults than acknowledging Sally's worth. The unspoken tension between them widened, and Chelsea began to fear that Adam's loyalty to Sally might not be limited to professional admiration. Meanwhile, Audra Charles wasted no time in exploiting the chaos. With Sally gone from Abbott Communications, Audra saw a chance to position herself as the indispensable solution. She approached Billy with feigned sympathy, offering to step in and steady the ship, but her motives were anything but altruistic. She knew that by aligning herself with Billy, she could manipulate his desperation and potentially reclaim power within the Abbott empire. Billy, too consumed by his crumbling world, barely registered the trap Audra was setting, grateful for any lifeline that might restore order, even if it came from someone as untrustworthy as Audra. The ripples of these events touched every corner of Genoa City. Victor Newman, ever the strategist, kept a close eye on the unfolding chaos, recognizing an opportunity to tighten his grip on both Abbott Communications and Newman Media. Kane Ashby, furious at Billy's disregard for his instructions, prepared to confront him directly, setting the stage for a clash that promised to shake the foundations of the Abbott family yet again. And in the middle of it all, Sally found herself pulled in every direction, by Adam's loyalty, by Billy's desperation, by Audra's scheming, and though she longed for clarity, the path ahead only grew murkier. For Chelsea, the struggle was personal and painful. Watching Adam defend Sally with a passion he no longer displayed for her was like reopening old wounds, reminding her of the years they had spent circling one another, always drawn together yet always undone by betrayal, ambition, or circumstance. She wanted to believe that Adam's admiration for Sally was nothing more than professional respect, but the glint in his eyes told her otherwise, and the jealousy that had once been a quiet whisper now roared like thunder in her veins. Chelsea knew she was on the brink of doing something drastic, something that could alter the fragile balance of her life, and possibly Adam's, in ways she couldn't yet foresee. Chelsea Lawson's envy of Sally Spectra was no longer just a simmering undercurrent that she could mask behind polite smiles and dismissive comments. It was becoming a roaring tide threatening to spill over into every interaction she had, especially with Adam Newman, whose glowing admiration for Sally had become impossible to ignore. Chelsea had always prided herself on her resilience, her ability to reinvent herself and survive, but sitting across from Adam at society, watching his eyes light up as he praised Sally's brilliance and potential, she felt like she was losing ground, not only in her relationship with Adam but also in her sense of self. Adam's voice was filled with passion as he described Sally's instincts in business and her courage to walk away from Billy Abbott when things became untenable, and Chelsea could only grip her glass tighter, her nails digging into her palm, forcing herself to respond with calm neutrality when what she really wanted to do was lash out. She tried to downplay Adam's admiration, brushing it off as typical Adam stubbornness, but her tone betrayed her insecurity, and Adam, though not fully aware of her growing envy, began to sense a wedge forming between them. Chelsea's comments about Billy, how she insisted they didn't know the whole story, irritated Adam to no end, leaving him baffled as to why Chelsea was more focused on defending Billy than supporting Sally, and though he didn't voice it, a part of him wondered if Chelsea's constant criticism of Sally was rooted in something deeper than she would ever admit. Meanwhile, Sally herself was standing at yet another crossroads in her life. After leaving Abbott Communications, she tried to maintain a strong front, but inside she was reeling. Her career had always been a roller coaster, filled with highs and crushing lows, but this felt different. This time, it wasn't just about losing a job or clashing with a boss. It was about realizing she had tethered herself to a man whose ambitions and grudges consumed everything in his path. Billy Abbott had promised her a future, a partnership, but all he delivered was chaos and broken promises. Sitting alone in her apartment, Sally thought about the choices she had made, the risks she had taken, and she couldn't help but feel a pang of regret for leaving Marchetti, for abandoning something that could have been steady, stable, and meaningful. Now, all she had were the remnants of a failed partnership and the faint hope that she could rise again, stronger than before. But the thought of Adam, of the way he looked at her with respect and genuine belief in her abilities, lingered in her mind, complicating everything. Billy Abbott, on the other hand, was spiraling in ways even he couldn't control. His obsession with taking down Victor Newman and proving himself as a power player in Genoa City had driven him to alienate Sally, frustrate Kane Ashby, and leave Abbott Communications teetering on the brink of disaster. His children, Johnny and Katie, watched helplessly as their father grew more agitated by the day, pacing the house, muttering to himself, his phone shattered against the wall after Sally's uncertain words cut deeper than any rival's attack ever could. He tried to convince himself that Sally would come back, that she was just upset and needed time, but a nagging voice inside him whispered the truth, that he had finally pushed too far, that this time she wasn't coming back. His desperation made him reckless, and when Audra Charles appeared with her sharp smile and veiled offers of help, Billy found himself reluctantly listening, ignoring the alarm bells that warned him Audra was only out for herself. He needed a lifeline, and Audra was more than happy to provide one, knowing full well that the more entangled Billy became with her, the easier it would be to manipulate him into doing her bidding. At Crimson Lights, Claire Newman continued to wrestle with her own complicated situation. Kyle Abbott's invitation to Paris had initially sounded like a dream, an escape from the turmoil of Genoa City, a chance to reconnect with a man she still cared for. But as the words sank in, Claire realized the truth. Paris wasn't about love or healing, it was about distraction. Kyle thought that sweeping her away to a glamorous city would make her forget the lies, the betrayals, the cracks in their foundation, but Claire knew better. Trust couldn't be bought with plane tickets and romantic gestures. When she refused his offer, Kyle's disappointment was palpable, his apologies heartfelt yet hollow, and Claire felt the weight of his desperation pressing down on her. Her doubts only deepened when Holden Novak appeared, offering his own apology and an explanation about his upcoming trip to Los Angeles to finalize Arabesque's transfer. Holden's sincerity was disarming, and Claire couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him, even as Kyle's jealousy flared. The confrontation between Kyle and Holden was tense, filled with accusations and thinly veiled threats, and though Claire tried to stay neutral, she could feel the battle lines being drawn, each man determined to win her trust and her heart.